So I'm Jan Parr. I'm a contributing editor to Crane's Chicago Business. I was full-time there until recently. Before that, I was editor of Chicago Home and Garden, which maybe some of you Chicagoans remember, a design and shelter magazine. So I spent a lot of happy hours here at the Mart doing various things and partnering with them on events and things like that. So I'm really happy to be doing this today. We've got a great panel. So right here is Al Biesel. He is executive director of LJL Design, an architecture firm in Chicago. Do you like to say the whole name?
We're Lamar Johnson Collaborative, LJC.
Okay.
Thanks for all being here today.
And then there's Katie Busey. She is VP and head of U.S. marketing for OFI. And that's a food ingredients company, right?
Correct.
Based here in Chicago. And Al and Katie worked on their new space. Then we have Mar, and I'll say it right, Martinez y Bastida, right? Okay. Senior Director of Procurement, Real Estate, and Workplace Operations at a legal technology company called Relativity here in Chicago. And then she worked with Ian Preston on the end there. He's the project designer at Partners by Design, also in Chicago, right here. So that's our group. I think we're going to have some fun. And at the end, we will, if you all have questions, I think you've been instructed to text, or you could shout them out. Maybe. Okay, so let's start with you guys down there, Mar and Ian. Tell us a little about, the timing of your project, the scope of your project, that sort of thing, where it is. Give us the basics.
You want me to get started?
Do you want to take over? Yeah.
Yeah, so we started the process in the beginning of 2023, when we were experiencing a leasing event that was coming that summer. And so we started doing our real estate research, looking for properties in the city. Do we want to stay? Do we want to relocate? So it came down to the summer. We decided to stay in our building, but relocate within the property. So we had disjointed floors, too much space in the lower end of the building, and so we were offered to move to the top of the building where the light exists. We also got an outdoor space, and so prior to committing to the amount of space that we had, we already knew that we needed to downsize. It was like after the onset of the pandemic. And so we engaged Partners by Design as part of that process, and they help us with the vision of our space, what we wanted to accomplish. We went from a very tired space to a very inspiring, full of light, collaborative space that we're very proud of.
And what you started originally with about 200,000 square feet and downsized to what the build out ended up being about 123, including the rooftop and terrace.
Correct. And the whole project took from the beginning of deciding if we wanted to move or relocate, let's say beginning of 2023, to moving in July of 2024.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And how about you guys? Explain the scope of your project, where you are.
I'll start, and then you can add color commentary. So we had kind of, OFI had kind of split off from a larger OLAM group to become a food and ingredients company. And so we rebranded our whole company, but at the same time, we had our employees in multiple different offices. So I think at that time we had 5 or 6 different office spaces, and our capabilities existed in each of those different office spaces. So for us,
I'm sorry, can I ask, were they all over Chicago, or were they in the suburbs, or?
So Willowbrook, we had some in Bolingbrook, some in Fresno, so we were kind of spread all over.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
for us to really kind of talk about our overall capabilities, we really had to come together into one space. And so that was kind of the premise behind it, of how do we truly drive collaboration within our company. And the only real way to do that is for everyone to be in the same space together.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the OLAM food ingredients project in and of itself really comes from an interesting story, because it's something we're all as architects very used to, and that is what's best for us. And so we started coming in and modeling, and they had a existing facility on Jackson Boulevard, and we were actually looking at what could we do to expand there. So all of the goals and objectives were fed in for a 6-month period into how are we going to make this work and what would it cost to do it. When we started rolling in the money, it became very apparent that we could pick up and go and look for other opportunities. So as such, we did a 7-building search based on square footage, which immediately narrowed itself down to 4, one of which was this complex here, the Merchandise Mart, and 24 East Washington has an incredible footprint size of almost 90,000 square feet per floor. So when we started looking at it, it became very beneficial to synergize all of what they do in one floor so that they could communicate effectively amongst all groups. Their story is a different story than Relativity. Their story is about growth. So they went from small footage to larger footage. We're just under 200,000 square feet with already an expansion underway. They moved in April of 23, so within 1 year we're already expanding. So the good is we're here talking about a very prosperous and healthy business that's doing wonderful things for their clients, wonderful things for themselves. It's really fun to watch an international practice become more of a US-based practice. Mm-hmm. And US is really driving a lot of the dialogue, obviously influence from ownership and who drives their kind of economics of the business. But we look for efficiency. So we'll share this with you as we go through it. But there's really no space like it in Chicago because it has 7 or 9, depending on how you look at it, different labs for sweet and savory. And so when you talk about recruitment, retention, and being able to show a client how their product could best deliver to the market, this space does it better than any space I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. That's a little bragging. A lot bragging.
We'll allow it. So Mar, tell us what, when you and Ian started working together, what was the goal? What was the overriding, principle behind what you wanted in the design?
Yeah, so we had an incredible opportunity to infuse what we learned during the pandemic. Like before, spaces were designed for 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, jump pack as many desks as you can for almost individual work. And so we are a Chicago tech firm. We're very proud of it, but we actually do have talent dispersed throughout the country and throughout the globe. And so we needed to reimagine our global headquarters and be able to have a space that could enable for collaboration, for gathering, for innovation, and that would reflect our culture, our values, not only from the folks in the city, but also globally. And so we wanted to really find a group of partners, whether it was Partners by Design or the rest of the group, that could help sit at the table throughout the entire process and to really build and deliver a space that would enable for multiple usage, for training, for meeting spaces, for individual work, for focus work, and I feel pretty proud that we accomplished that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in what ways, what sort of design elements supported those goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mar, I will say right off the bat, is not only our client, but part designer.
Tempting to be.
Right from the very beginning, she knew both exactly how she wanted the space to look and feel, but how it should function and work best for your culture, right? So go ahead.
Can I ask, Mar, how did you know? I mean, had you seen other offices that you emulated or pictures, or how did you communicate that?
I am a very creative person normally. I love to look and to observe and to learn, but I think the most important part of all of it is understanding the culture and your colleagues and the activities that we do. And so that needs to be reflected into the space. And so when I'm looking at inspiration or I look at imagery, I want to envision how good Relativians would fit into that space. And so that was really important. And they fully understood what I was going for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not to say I would send them millions of pictures.
Literally millions. We shared a Pinterest board. It was amazing. It was a great collaboration. But you knew right from the beginning that you wanted all of these opportunities for collision collaboration, for a multiple kit of parts that your team could move around, interact with, make things different based on their needs for that given day or meeting or what have you. The staircase that we're all looking at right now is a great example. You knew you wanted the connecting stair, and our experience from Partners by Design, we know that these are great opportunities for collaboration, for meetings, and you guys are using it now for your worldwide town halls, right, where you're broadcasting from the stair across the globe at special things that are happening within relativity, and just being able to kind of connect to those other offices, right, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, we had our holiday party there with a live band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Tell us about the piano.
Yeah, actually, we do have a piano that one of my...
A baby grand.
Yeah, it's a baby grand.
Yep.
I was actually visiting our Krakow office, and I got a random text message from an old neighbor of mine and said, like, hey, I know you guys are musical at your household. It's like, I do have a state sale. If you want, you can grab the piano. And I know exactly where we can put it. And actually, we do have a lot, like our employee base, it's a combination of very smart engineers and like marketing professionals and sales, but we actually do have a lot of talented people, and it's very nice to hear them play randomly.
I was visiting a couple months ago, and there was a guy during lunch just playing the piano, and I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is
and
very nice.
fantastic playing. It was pretty amazing.
Wow, yeah. And how does the sound work? I mean, are people able, if they didn't want to hear the piano, do you have like closed off areas at all?
I love that question. And it's a nice segue to speak about thoughtful space planning. And so that's where we got the expertise from Partners by Design. So this is a building, an old building nearby the Bureau of Trade. It's 231 South LaSalle. It's a clay building, 100 years old?
101.
101.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it is very interesting the way that we knew we were getting the outdoor terrace, and there's 2 elevator towers, and so they were very clever to make sure that our reception would be at the same elevator tower, then it would lead you to the outdoor space, right? And so we made it intentional that when you land into the reception, that all your gathering spaces are sort of like in the vicinity of that reception. And then as you move further away, it becomes more of the individual, private, day-to-day work that happens.
Yeah.
So it's quite isolated, and it's really, truly not bothering anyone for most of the time.
Right.
And we went through and were very methodical about creating these various experiences where you could opt in to a very engaging space like their town hall, or retreat away and be in the quiet library or the quiet little phone rooms. Again, as we were talking about earlier, just like the menu of choices for an employee at Relativity are pretty quite amazing.
And I mean, obviously, this is a newer concept, right, over the last 10 years because of the pandemic. I don't think we ever in the past talked so much about giving employees options. I mean,
Right.
somebody might squirrel away, you know, in a dark corner of the conference room, but in general, people were at their desks,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So yeah, we're talking about a whole new operation. I know when I start working at home from Cranes, I realized how much my back and shoulder didn't hurt anymore because I was like, you know, lounging on my couch, right?
Yep.
So, you know, to go back, it was fine, but I often sought out, and Cranes redid our offices as well. We're over in Prudential. And yeah, it was a whole different ballgame once you were used to different ways of working.
And I know that we kind of talked about during the planning as kind of an attraction proposition, right? And like, I know that you were really keen on trying to bring people back into the office through amenities, through the ability to have a private room, the ability to still work from a sofa if you wanted to, right? Like, and bring that level back into the office. So I know that that was also something we talked about very early on in offering various ways to work. And I think a lot of your desks are still hoteling, right?
Oh yeah, and it's very interesting because we're using the space very well, but it was also a challenge to sell on the idea.
Yeah.
Because people are accustomed to like, hey, I need my desk. Why are you cutting down desks? Why are you allowing so much square footage for all these
Especially
other
older
activities?
employees, I imagine, very much
Both,
want their own
right?
space.
It's the employees because they're not accustomed to change. They're actually afraid of the change. But it's also your management, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is your cost per square footage based on the activities that you're doing? But we're working very differently, right? We have a hybrid policy that only requires for those that are in the close vicinity of the office for 2 days in the office.
2 days in the
2 days in the office. If you are within like an hour commute, everyone else can be remote fully, right? We don't really police it. But like when the execs are coming in town, when we have all hands, when we have projects that we're working on, releases of products, people are coming and they need all these diverse spaces to be able to do work that not necessarily happens on a desk. It needs to happen in training rooms, it needs to happen in meeting rooms, it needs to happen in town hall spaces. And so it's very interesting. It was hard to communicate a change, but now we're using that very well.
I think there's a real interesting parallel this morning about these two projects in the sense that this is pre this notion of what interest rates and what is going on in build that we're all encountered with right now today. This is a time where we reposition buildings because of the beauty the building provides and the amenity the building provides. So you take an older building here and you take Macy's Marshall Fields, which is just under 200 years old. It's actually 7 buildings that come together to create one footprint. So floors aren't level, columns don't align. Anything you can think of, check that box. That's in that building. But what's great is it's a large-scale contiguous floor plan that gives you the ability to have a lot of playful fun with it. If you could page, I'm just going to ask to page through the project from its start, and we'll just do a real quick. Maybe that's a little quick. What do you think?
Go to the
Do you think
video.
that's a little quick? Okay.
I don't know, maybe you're slower. Okay.
Okay. I've been told I am. Please go through it.
Okay.
I just want people to kind of get a breath of what the project is.
Oh, you used
we
some
did
beach
it.
tile as well?
I've used up my battery
I
life.
love the plan.
Yeah.
But
And
see,
this
here now, immediately when you immerse yourself at reception, you immediately understand what this client does, from grow walls and product and spices to immediate action. So if you're an investor, which walks into this facility very frequently, or you're a client, you start to engage immediately in the program. When we started this job, we went to Blommer's, which is a chocolate company here in Chicago, here in the Mart, and we also went to McDonald's. At our firm, we are a conglomerate of a lot of practitioners that worked at other places, so we had great relationships with the McDonald's group, and we went over there and studied it on what worked and didn't.
Interesting, yeah.
But what we found is it was very, very bifurcated in work versus lab. And the lab was very small, and so here we decided to keep your central focus with 7 labs that would really allow you to engage and interact. So now you get investment, you get recruitment and retention, and you get all the ability where place works for you. And I think more often than not, I personally hate the phrase return to work because I think it just keeps offering choice. And I think if you're listening and engaging with your clients and developing great space pragmatically, they'll want to be in that space. And I think that's important to recognize.
Yep. And the great part, right, about what I love about my job is we're a food company, right? So we're continuously tasting and innovating on food. So the space needed to allow us to come together in a kitchen, to taste product, to provide feedback. So there's a lot of tables for us to sit at. There's seating in the kitchen. So it's really how do we immerse ourselves in our ingredients and in our innovation and create a space that allows us to engage together on that. So I think that was a very unique challenge for us. And then to Al's point, as customers come in, how do we immerse them in it? How do we take them into the kitchens? How do they eat our food? Because that's really, for us is the main, our main business. And if we don't have that front and center, we lose that opportunity with customers.
So if you've had the opportunity to be in the Fields, which is now the Macy's complex, you know that there's atriums and light courts, and it's just filled with antiquity that is just something you need to capture. So we put all around the north atrium section, we put all meeting zones and teaming and collab. our focus for people was always about natural light. And how is it that you infuse the entire workplace with that natural light so that it's really immersed in and works for you beneficially? Every part of it is about the person. You talk about work from home and what that means. That means I have choice. So our goal and Ian's goal on both of these jobs today was to create choice for people. You might be working here for 2 hours. You might be working somewhere else for 2 hours. It might be a beautiful day as such, and you might go up to the rooftop deck. And there's a rooftop deck that's absolutely beautiful here and gives you the ability to work there too. In the dead of summer, you'll find most of the employees from all the companies are working up on that rooftop deck in some population. What's cool about that is then they actually steal each other from each other and go work there. No, that was a but what it does is it gives you a chance to collide and collaborate and understand what's going on in business practice right now today. And the businesses are all very different. This particular building is what we see more with relativity to tech forward. And so tech forward has the ability to say to themselves, what is it that our people will appreciate as opposed to that sterile desk and conference room and office space that you see in a lot of high rises. When you capture that with a less rent factor, because these buildings are more aggressive to get you in, you have a home run all the way across the board. Well, you have to overcompensate is that ever prevalent one stat that still rolls, and that's square foot per occupant. We in interior architecture are always faced with that analysis of what other tenants are doing, what our competition is doing, and how we can actually embrace that and be beneficial. Because if you're 500 square foot per occupant, you're not doing your client any favor on their rent. So you have to find a way to make it work in all categories. And these old buildings have so many beautiful aspects to it. You know, this building has 19-foot clear span windows. You're challenged to find that anywhere in America, let alone Chicago.
And how do you account for growth? How do you design something that can accommodate if you add employees?
So we have, I think, similar, we have dedicated desk space for everyone. Executives do not have offices. Our CEO has the office. He's the only one that has an office space. Everybody else is in open cube areas with their teams.
And are they dedicated desks or are they floating?
So for the people that are in the office more often, they are dedicated desks. For our sales teams, the one that come in less often, we have hoteling space for them. So we have a mix of both, but lots of offices, conference rooms that you can go in and have those conversations in. So for us was giving that flexibility of if people are coming to the office, we want them spending time with their teams. We don't want them holed up in an office on video calls. So how do we create a space that, for better or for worse, forces some of that collaboration that we may not get organically? And so I think the way that the space was designed really was set up to drive those conversations and drive that collaboration. And then we were intentional on where we sat people, right? So marketing sits right next to innovation, and we have, our business development teams right next to us. So there are these very organic conversations that take place because of how intentionally we laid out the space.
And to add to that, we as architects are in a luxury item right now on one regard, and that is their space availability. So if a smart lease would be executed by their real estate component, they would have a right of expansion. So OFI took a right of expansion adjacent to where you're looking right now, and already we're designing that expansion space, and they've only been in for 1 year. So that you have to be very savvy with what deal you cut for yourself,
right,
so that you have the ability to grow and contract if you need to.
At Relativity, we did something similar, and I think what a lot of companies are doing now is with the kind of open collaboration spaces, we very intentionally have provided power, data, and provisioned for future growth. So she could easily slide sofas, lounge chairs out of the way, and it's already got the footprint ready for another 6-pack of workstations or more benching or what have you. So she's able to grow in her current footprint by X% before having to take another floor, for example.
Yeah, we did a hybrid approach, right? Very much so what he says, but in the same token, we did do some mechanics in our leasing exercise to enable for potential further growth. And also, if you look at the space plan that was designed by partners, it truly enables us, if we wanted to, we went all in on all these collaborative spaces and these large gathering spaces that we could take progressively more space that could have certain functions. Like we have plenty of town hall space and meeting rooms and training. We could take half a floor and just dedicate its desks, for example. So we do have a lot of flexibility, both from the leasing aspect to the original design that partners provided to potential further design if we wanted to take more space.
Are there any spaces, and I'll ask both of you, in your offices that act in a different way than you had planned? Or are there some that just like are empty, nobody goes in it, and you decided to repurpose, you know, because people often don't act exactly the way you think they might?
Loaded question, ladies.
I mean, I'll say, and I think inherently, right, even at home, the kitchen is where everyone ends up, right? And I think what we have found in our space is there are so many meetings and conversations that take place in our kitchens. And so I think we had initially thought that was the working kitchen. We'll have, you know, products that come out of it, and then we'll move to another room where now you find everyone really standing and sitting in the kitchen. And I think you even find people that are missing out, right? What are we cooking in here? What am I not getting a chance to taste? So I think we are finding that kitchen space, even when our customers are not in, that's where a lot of the employees really do gravitate.
And was I clear? You're saying that right when you walk in, the kitchen is visible,
you go
like it's
backwards,
glass? Yeah.
maybe?
Whoop. Yeah. That's all
There
right.
goes the meeting. It's over, everyone.
it's over.
The notepad
We're off
went.
script now.
If you go back a
So-
little bit, a couple more. That's going to engage it. One more. Okay, so when you first walk in,
So that's-
you immediately know what you're about as a client in terms of what the product is. But in all of the glass partitioning that you see right and left, that's conferencing for teams, but you already start to get the lab component immediately.
Got it.
So even if I'm forcing you in this plan to, if you're in a meeting, you're looking across the hall and seeing what it is they do.
Yeah.
And so you know what you're about and you know why you're there, but it is food. There's some other parts about spices that we designed into the graphics and did just some fun, playful things, but it's all about engagement. And it's all about opportunity to put their product out into the market in a way that people get it. So in the building itself is Ferraro as well, Ferraro candies.
Yep.
They sell, OFI does a lot of the cocoa for that particular client, if not all. So there's a lot of chance engagement with them too. Jokingly, we said we think every Friday you should have like free food day, and we'd be delighted to come over. But we didn't get there yet, and we will maybe. But I think the number one thing here is about choice for people during the work day.
How do you manage smells?
Well, they're relegated to certain zones, and we exhausted them right out the building.
Okay.
So they're exhausted. We had a zone that, this is a complicated building because
Yeah.
the Landmarks Commission of Chicago controls every square inch of it. So any move we made had to be approved by Landmarks prior to us executing any of it. And trust me, it was very complicated. But we had the good fortune, you know, we developed the project as well with our parent company in Clayco. And so as we developed the turnover of the building, we had all the relationships that we could push the phone call to, and they would help us try to work through things more aggressively than it taking a standard 6, 8, 10-week protocol.
Right. Good. Nice. Yeah. How about you guys?
Yeah.
Is there a space that is not operating the way you thought it would?
I mean, it's operating beyond what we would expect. For example, I'll give you the space where we have our, what is it called, arcade.
Yeah.
We do have a golf simulator, and we have all kinds of entertaining. And I thought it would be just like for the breaks, but actually you see them gather and discuss and sit in that couch and play video games, and they're talking about work. And so it goes beyond that pause moment that you were thinking that you were providing an attraction for them to work. And so actually they are working while they're using these amenities.
That's nice.
So yeah, it's been very nice to see the transformation on how form and function come together.
Are there spaces that are being used a lot that you wish you had more of, that are unexpectedly being used? Like you mentioned that one room, that multifunction room that that can break apart the stadium seating. Like maybe should we have done more of that?
If we have more people coming into the office, yes. I mean, I'm very proud because we're using them, but it's like, as you can imagine, with the 2-day in-person policy, like we still have a lot of square footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kitty, what's your current policy right now on people being in the office?
So we have implemented a 5-day return
When did that,
to office. So the first phase went into effect June 1st. We are providing some lag in that due to, miscellaneous issues, childcare, and so on. So by September 1st, our goal is to have everybody in the office. And again, right, when you think of the space, you have to create something that they can't get from home, right? Well, we have to give them a motivation. Don't tell them to come into the office. How are you creating a space that they want to be there, right? They want to be innovating. They want to be tasting amazing food. So I think that was a lot when we walked through the design, knowing we were going to need people in the office of how do we create a space that people get up in the morning every day and say, I can't wait to come to work because it's going to be so much fun in a space that helps me be successful in my job. So I think that was something, we continuously talked through as we were doing the design of not just aesthetically and functionally, but how do we kind of create that, other aspect of it that people really are excited to come to work every day.
because, yeah, you must have had people who lived near Oak Brook or your other satellite offices. So it's a big ask. It's a big commute.
It is.
We had people come in from California, right, and other areas that we're all under one roof right now. That's the big dynamic of success. If you want to collaborate, you have to be able to collaborate.
Right, for sure. Is there something you wish you had done with the design? Now it's too late. Anything that you can think of?
I mean, the vault is still.
The vault?
So being in this old bank building, there's a literal vault in the basement. And
Bar.
I know.
I know. We were going to turn it into this like swanky, I hate to say speakeasy, but this really cool bar, getaway space, right? Great for entertaining clients, great for a tour path. And it just didn't work out. But I think, is it still under, or is it still undeveloped? TBD, okay, all right.
Somebody take out a hat and everybody put $1 in it. Pass it around, we'll get some money for it.
Yeah.
Economics are hard to prove.
It sounds like a nice to have and not a
Yes.
have to have,
Yep.
right?
Yep,
Yeah, it was really hard for me to justify at the time.
yeah.
Not to say that I would love to do something.
Well, because we would love to work
It's
with you
that
again,
balancing
so maybe,
Yeah.
well, I think Scott's in the room. We can probably
Hey, Scott.
kickstart things again.
Just page the image.
Did you have
Which one?
photos of the rooftop in here?
We don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't believe.
What about ours?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, no rooftops in this that I recall.
Drop the ball again.
Jeez, Al.
Is there what you want
But
to?
you can see no spaces at the perimeter. Everything goes inboard for people.
We did a similar.
The amount of natural light, we didn't augment the images at all. That's Mother Nature
Really?
giving it up.
Nice.
I don't think we had a single room on the perimeter. We pulled it all in. There might be- there's a
just
couple
a couple
conference
in the
rooms.
south side.
Yep.
But for the most part, everything. is
Just to
like a nice
capitalize
flow.
similarly
Exactly.
on all the natural light that comes into the building. And I didn't realize that you were making use of the atrium as well.
Those
Yeah.
windows
That's
are
awesome.
spectacular.
Yeah, that atrium is the best. Are most of you from Chicago? Yeah? Okay, but yeah, for those who aren't, the former Marshall Fields building on State is really a magnificent landmark here.
There's so much history. So at the very top of the building, which is the 24th floor, that's where, if you're familiar with Chicago, Pepper Construction actually got their start, as hard as that is to believe. They were in 3,500 square feet and they were a carpentry crew. And they started building. So what Fields did, he was just an entrepreneur. I think he had that fat wallets are in, quote, well before anybody else did. And he knew how to make money as a businessman. So they made all their product either local to Indiana or right here in the building. And then they put it right on the floor and sell it. So they reduced their transportation costs of all of that and be able to pass that savings on to maybe themselves. And in that, there was just a lot of dynamics that happened here. So this open air atrium serves as a full court atrium to the build. But as you can see here, this punching of all this glass partition, we were forced by the city of Chicago to put that in because it wasn't there. And it was always a smoke detriment to the building. If a fire were to break out, it would go on every floor and fill it. So we have a double pane of glass, and we also have fire suppression both to the atrium side as well as to the workplace side. And it just gives you a chance to engage in history. And we couldn't be more excited to watch all these buildings in town really get ignited and start to see something good happen to them.
Yeah, it's great from an urban planning perspective, yeah, to see the loop, see more life and stuff in the loop, and I think it's going to be the key.
Well, we're all watching what PBD is doing for the Google job, because that's going to revolutionize the entire central city.
So explain for those.
So Google took over the Thompson Center, and there's
That's
fabulous,
the big red one in the loop, if you know it.
fabulous
People
design.
love to hate it,
It's kind
No longer red.
no longer.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But good things are going to happen from it, because you're sparking a lot of activity central to the business district.
Yeah.
So you're not only Google, but restaurants, hotels, everything around it that spark it, and then other businesses are going to flourish as well. So it's just a wonderful thing to see happen to our city, and we're hoping more of that continues.
What's the timeline for that to open, do you know?
Currently tracking early 2027.
2027?
Yeah.
Back to micro. You
No
talked-
way, we're going everywhere.
Yeah, we're all over the place. That's okay. We talked a little before about flexibility with actual furniture pieces and stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how you chose things and how they work?
Yeah, we had a great partner, great furniture partner, Thompson Tiers, who had a great team. And Mar, again, she knew what her team needed. And I think what was a great story was that you knew you wanted to reuse a lot of stuff, which was huge, right? So wanted to reuse desks, wanted to reuse as much furniture. There was a sustainability story that was very much a part of the brand and culture.
Yeah, the waste that happens sometimes.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
And I think because she was in Relativity, I should say, was in the same building. They were moving from 231 in certain floors up a few floors. So there was a savings to just move things up versus having to pack it into a truck across town, et cetera. So we had that ability. But in terms of the furniture selections, we knew that we wanted it to be hardworking and being able to serve multiple functions, right? And not just be a desk or whatever. So that was a part of it. We wanted to make sure that all of our corner collab spaces could function as a work point, right? And that it wasn't just a lounge. So we had a lot of laptop tables, various tables that you could pull up. We have power everywhere.
Partitions that move.
Partitions that move, yeah, just whiteboards. And yeah, I mean, and then there were those little cherry on top pieces that we had to have. Mar went, to Jason Home. She went all across the city
Nice.
finding little
So
gems.
not traditional.
Not traditional, right? It was a
yeah.
great mix of both corporate pieces, both contract grade pieces, retail pieces, finds. She really wanted a curated feel, which immediately I was drawn to, right? Because it's very different than a lot of the work that we do day in and day out. And so I was unfortunately not able to join on that shopping spree day, but her.
Melissa's here.
Yeah, Melissa's
She's like,
here.
I was there.
But to just go out and right, it's just so atypical, and we had a blast doing this project, right? It was a really good time.
Yeah, the furniture was part from sitting at the table from the design process. So they were selected very early on. They knew what we wanted. They were in constant communication with the design, with the architects. And then we found the right balance of how do we reuse and reimagine? What is it that we need to invest in terms of commercial grade furniture? And what are those elements of residential and hospitality and comfort that we can bring. So these are examples of things that are like a couch that you would find in your house with like a table that you would find in your house with very high-end chairs. And so you can see throughout the space, and it's the care and the love, not only from us as a customer, but also from our partners, Thomas Interiors and Melissa and her team.
I love the fireplace.
Oh yeah, we had to
That
go
was
above and
a
beyond.
hot topic.
Yeah,
for
they all
many
loved me
months.
when I was like,
No
no,
pun
it needs to be this.
On the hot
Yes.
seat. Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully, the building let us go right through that window at the end. Originally, that exhaust was snaking all around the town hall,
boy.
and it was just, it already had to be low, right? The ceiling, the deck-to-deck height is already low. And so thankfully, they were like, yeah, go out the side of the building. It's fine.
All projects that we're part of, all firms, flexibility is paramount. You don't want to have to go back and take on more space or have to contract. So how can you use your space in a way that it's easily reconfigurable for teaming, meeting, and you're going to learn about your company, especially if you're a startup or doing something new. You're going to learn a lot about how that company functions culturally, and you're going to have to adapt over a lease term, because for you to make, at these guys' square footages of these jobs we're talking about, the beneficial aspect has to be somewhere around that 100,000 square foot mark, where you really start to see cost savings come back to you as a driver. And so how do you take that amount of footage and make it very flexible? If you're doing 10,000 square foot job, that's a different story, because there's only so much space that's common or amenity-based. The rest is people.
Right.
But when you have these spaces, you have to really look at how they can transform and be something else, and how you can adapt to use those differently. You used to rent all these halls and have fundraisers and have clients meet you there. Your space can be that today. And so, you know, that's not a revolutionary idea. It's one that's just a driver of a good thought. Right? Make it work for you.
Yeah. And do you find that the furniture makers and accessory makers and stuff in contract, you know, have adapted in that way?
Oh, without
You've
question.
got innovative things?
Yeah, without question. It starts as simple as 10, 12 years ago when desking became the sit-to-stand notion. That was something that just was a term, but it's really fabulous for you, the end user. But all product is flexible and can transform from working to conferencing to meeting space. I think the traditional private office is a real waste of square footage. If you're going to build one, build it in a way that it becomes more of a war and workroom. Build it in a way that, like Mar said, she's there then 2 days a week. Well, what about the other 3 days a week where someone else could possibly benefit from that office share? And how can you work that into the matrix of success on your rent? Because at the end of the day, after salaries, rent's your number one cost.
So yeah, Mara, I imagine that, so you reduced space because you knew people weren't all going to be there every day, right? And that this is a reality that you accepted after the pandemic?
Yeah, and we didn't want to overcommit to space. We know we can grow into this space, and so we're taking baby steps. And so right now we do have a policy that no one gets a desk unless you request it, and you can justify that on the average you go there more than 3 days a week, because our policy is 2 days a week, right? If we would say 2 days, then everyone would have to have a designated desk. That would not make sense. And so for now, it's working very well. We offer free lunch on Wednesdays. We do a lot of our town hall, all hands meetings on Wednesdays. And so you see that peak in the middle of the week. But when you go to work on Wednesday and everyone is there, are you really going to need a desk 9 to 5? No, absolutely not. People will use that time to do like a specific get-together for a project status update. They'll do specific training sessions. We will be at the stairs. We're offering lunch so that we ignite that networking that happens between colleagues. So even though we might have close to 500 people and we have 350 official desks and a little bit of overflow because of the meeting rooms and stuff, no one feels that, oh, I did not have a desk for today. And so that is working well for now.
And do you think that's because, I know we talked earlier, your average age of your employee is definitely younger, right?
Our demographics are,
Yeah.
more on the younger side. We have folks from all ages, but there's a
right,
big
right.
bulk of.
And what about at OFI?
A little bit older, so I
Okay.
think there were some tricky conversations about people not getting offices. But
bet.
I do believe once they're sitting with their teams, they are seeing the benefits of it. And we've designed plenty of private spaces, right? So to have sensitive conversations, those exist, easy to book. So.
Right, right.
And people do, as we said, right, the 14th floor, I go up there with my team all the time. I do my one-on-ones up there, right? It's beautiful, enjoy the Chicago weather while we have it, but it's a great space to just get out of the office, go upstairs, and continue some of those conversations.
So tell me, what was the reaction with the big reveal? You know, the first day you had employees come in and look, you know, what was the reaction?
Well, for us was night and day, right? So you're coming from the old floors, which were not staggered together. We had 5, and then 7 and 8, and then 10. And it was mainly desks everywhere. And
People didn't really go up and down.
And think about it, Relativity grew exponentially, very rapid growth as a tech company, so there was not a lot of investment prior to these rapid growth years in CapEx. And so we had a sublease, and they leveraged the old Bank of America tables, and it was like, let's add a little bit more space. And so you would have to open a weird door and then badge in and go through a corridor. People would get lost, especially because there's a hole in the middle, right? And so all of a sudden, we had this ability to really think through the floor plates, blank slate.
Yeah.
And then we did this huge opening, as you saw it. So you're coming out of reception, you open the glass doors, and you have this atrium that you're building. And so employees all of a sudden went from these caves, very dark at the bottom of the building, to the top of the building, with everything making so much sense. So yes, people were like blown away as part of the reaction.
Nice, nice. I imagine. They're both gorgeous offices. You guys too? You have a good...
Same, I think stunned amazement, right? I think for the spaces that we were in before, I do think, to Al's point, the natural light aspect of this office is unlike you will see anywhere else. So I think that's kind of the first thing. And then we did have to provide maps for people. It is a very large space that you can get lost in. So we did kind of provide some maps so everyone knew where they needed to go. But
Because, yeah, you can't get through the atrium. You have to go...
There's a few little side hallways and stuff like that. But I mean, all of our customers that have come in have just been amazed at the space.
Nice. Well, I think we could take some questions. Yeah.
How did you guys tackle the acoustics of these spaces? They're pretty wide open with a lot of hard surfaces. What were some of those conversations that from my background in the audiovisual industry, so I see the stairs and you're having the all hands meetings there. How are those recorded? Whether it doesn't matter what UC platform you're using, but how is the audio in that space?
That's a great question.
From an architectural side, we used in that space, I believe, about 1.5 inches of K13 to help soften the sound. Had a lot of soft surfaces. We had rugs that were added. I can't speak to the technology side of things and what type of sound mitigation was just kind of baked into that system. But in a real world experience, I think it's working okay.
Yeah, so we hire a sound expert, right, as part of the construction and design team. And so we built a control room, like a set of sophisticated microphones and speakers. And so between the combination of what the designers created in terms of the K13, like the materiality that was used, along with the AV investment, it makes for a very comfortable space to be in, despite the expansiveness of it. And then when you start transitioning to more of the more collaborative and closed spaces, or the open space areas with the desks, again, the materiality was very important. All of a sudden, what used to be concrete floors around, there's pockets of carpet, or the materials that the furniture folks use for the preventing of the sound between the desks. And so it was always very important for us to make it very comfortable, depending on the areas of the space that we were at.
Yeah, I don't think that's any different for the OFI space. For those of you that don't know what K13 is, it's a Benjamin Moore developed product that actually sprays in and adheres to the surface you attach it to, and it provides acoustical property. The thicker you make it, the more you get out of it. There is an expense for it, but it's the best money you can spend when you're trying to create open environment within a space. And then sound masking and all the other techniques can get folded in. But you have to pay attention to it, because space people can't work under or below isn't going to be space that's very good.
Yeah.
That can't be the only question.
Yeah.
How are you destigmatizing this collaborative space? We're finding that we build this beautiful space out for collaboration, and then with some of the major corporations in Philadelphia, we see a lot of kind of the culture of the organization. They kind of, it's not looked upon well if it's almost like you're wasting time if you're in this collaborative space. So how are you working with your companies to kind of destigmatize this collaborative space, really to really know what the resources that you can get out of this collaboration effort?
So I'll take that to start. So I think inherently, being an ingredient company, we're very siloed, right? So we would have a large customer, we would sell them our nuts portfolio. They didn't even know that we also make spices, that we also make coffee, right? So we're actually able to prove it with customer sales, that saying, when we're all together, when we're presenting to a customer cohesively as one company, here's what we're able to do in terms of the offering that we can present. So we're presenting OFI, not an ingredient. And that's really where we've been able to kind of show, right? It's all the money. You got to show the revenue at the end of the day, and we're able to prove that out. And then it's just, again, driving efficiencies, and it's the retainment of talent, right? So we found before, people, when you were working in silos, they didn't feel connected to the company. They didn't feel connected to the purpose because they were in kind of their own little space. Now giving them visibility to everything that the company does, now there's interest in career expansion. What else can I be doing? There's a much broader sense of purpose because they see how it ties back to what we're doing, especially with younger employees, right? So I do feel we're seeing it from a revenue side, but also what we're seeing from an employee satisfaction as well.
Yeah, I think collaboration is an interesting word because, 20 years ago, it was something on a plan that you couldn't make work any other way, so you stuck some chairs in it. And it didn't work, and it doesn't work. We do a lot of law firms at our practice, and generationally, if a partner walks by and sees other partners sitting and talking, they think they're talking about the ball game last night. And so they're not appreciating what that chance encounter and that dialogue does to free up your labor effort on what you're working on right now. So there's benefit to it. Generationally, we're seeing a lot of the elder statesmen and women coming in and appreciating it and understanding it more because it's working for them, and they're seeing proof statements in their bottom line and revenue and their retention. Not even recruitment today. The number one thing is retention.
I think it's also just kind of company culture, right? Like where I am at PBD, it's the environment is work wherever you want to do your best work and succeed, right? And be able to create wonderful products at the end of the day for our clients. And I think that really needs to be hit home for a lot of companies, that I don't care where you are in the office. I love that you're here, and I love that you're just doing your best work, whether it's sitting on that lounge chair, or it's in this phone room, or it's in the bathroom, wherever you are, do your best work, be the most successful person you can be while you're here, right?
Yeah, well said.
Right.
Choice and culture sounds to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that there is a question here on the screen that somebody texted, and we talked about this a little before. Like, how do we measure success, right? Like, how do we, do we see changes in productivity, employee utilization? How do you know, other than the chance, you overheard some talk, this sort of thing?
Despite tapping into the metrics to really highlight capacity and utilization as part of these components, I would say success is when you can greet your customers and show them the space that represents the people that are building products for them, that employees gather together and they get the best out of their days and their work. I would say those to me are instrumental for success metrics. It's hard though to validate that productivity and how the real estate really is one of those metrics that can demonstrate that I was more productive because I was in the office. We're still developing that.
I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge. And space has to be where your people are telling you that it's working for them.
Yep.
You can have all the metrics in the world, and math doesn't drive success. People drive success, and people want space that they can be, as Ian said earlier, do their best work.
Yep.
And that's going to be where you're not Velcroed to a chair in front of a monitor all day. You're going to have heads down focus. You're going to have collaboration. You may want to leave. 2 o'clock might be better at home.
Right.
It just might. And so what is that choice that you have that makes you successful is what you have to kind of come out of that programming sessions early on in a job. We start all our jobs with what's missing. Not how many people do you need, how many conference rooms do you need, what's your percentage of occupant per conference chair, what's your square foot per occupant. Those rules are there, but they really have to tailor themselves to what it is that you're trying to do with space in the market today, because it's expensive and it needs to drive success for you. Companies were looking for a lot of conferencing, a lot of meeting. I personally don't believe you can ever build enough conferencing and meeting space within workplace today. We have more than you can imagine amongst 4 floors in our office, and I can never get a room if it's impromptu and I need it in a half an hour or 20 minutes. I have to go to an alternate floor or sometimes even to a Starbucks or coffee shop. And I think that that's not the right way to have space work for you. So ask the challenging questions. What is it? And another one is, what do you have at home that you don't have here that's going to benefit your success and your growth?
My cat.
Yeah, I think the biggest one that's not being touched on today is we're all architecturally talking about space. I think the biggest aspect is mentorship and growth. And if you're working from home, it's really hard for those Brady Bunch phone calls for your career to grow. And so you have to be recognized, the boss has to see your energy and passion, and you have to engage with people. And that only happens with people being with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah.
So what do you do with a space that ends up being deserted? Do you try to promote it, or do you just refurbish it into a more popular space?
Well, all depends on kind of like when you're referencing space that's under captured. I think you have to look at what your lease term is. Hey, by the way, that one got everybody to leave, that question.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I'm not sure what you did, but you did it well. I think the aspect is if you have to give back space, first of all, I mentioned it earlier, you have to be abundantly smart in the lease structure that you capture so you can give space back. That's not always easily done, right? Landlords don't want space back. They don't want that phone call. So you have to look at what Ian and I were talking about earlier, flexibility in that place. Set it up, modulate it, supply it with mechanical, electrical infrastructure, find the AV connectivity points, and then transform that space. We are mothballing space for a lot of our clients today, where we're building more than they need, and they execute a better rent, because certain landlords in certain states would willingly give you 15,000, 18,000 more square feet at a reduced cost rather than sit on it and collect no rent whatsoever. So you have to be very creative and work with a great real estate team. We're blessed here in the Midwest. It's some of the best brokerage there is across the country at really getting good deals for clients. And look at what those opportunities can be. Maybe it's a town hall, maybe it's a teaming, maybe it's meeting space on day one, but then maybe it transforms into offices and workplace or conferencing or something else. But you always have to look at architecture, at how it can transform to the next something. It's day 2, not day 1, ever.
Well, and I think to your earlier point, it's listening to your people, right? You know, like there's a space that's really highly utilized at Relativity, and I asked earlier on to Mar, like, do you need another one of these rooms, right? Like now that you've lived in it for a little while, do you want another one? You know, we could easily turn one of these corner open collaboration areas into another multifunction room because we have that flexibility. But I think it goes back to listening to your people, what's working, what's not working, and how can we, again, create this workplace that's going to allow you to do your best work.
Yeah. Somebody asked about cost per square footage, and I don't think our panelists want to get into those exact numbers, but I think that you have alluded to this, that, you know, it's more economical than building new.
Listen, right now in the market and across the world for people's bottom line, there'd be no deal if it wasn't a really good one. And good can be a lot of factors, but economics drive every project. At our clients' request, we keep costs to ourselves on these kinds of sessions, but they're not crazy money. They're not what you see. Even legal practice that I have the good fortune of being part of my whole career that used to average around $250 to $350 a square foot on small numbers is gone down because people aren't putting in all the opulence in space. They're putting space in functional and transformational. So you're not going to put a bunch of very expensive product if you know that space needs to become something down the road. So cost analysis, day 1, day 2, day 3, are what drive projects today much more than here's a great deal, let's try to make it work for ourselves. Money is just as important as great planning.
Yeah, interesting, thanks. Well, anybody else? Otherwise, thank you guys.
We're getting played off.
The mic is full.
22 seconds to go, perfect.
Yeah.